January 1, 1863 was not just the start of a new year, it was the birth of a new American identity. By the time the sun rose on that New Year's Day, the American Civil War had been raging for nearly 2 years. What had begun as a political struggle to preserve the Union was fundamentally transformed into a moral crusade to end slavery. President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation is often misunderstood in modern classrooms. It didn't instantly shatter the chains of every enslaved person in America. In fact, it was a calculated military and political strike. It only applied to states currently in rebellion against the United States, conveniently exempting border states like Missouri and Kentucky, as well as southern territories already under Northern occupation. However, its symbolic weight was immeasurable. It turned the Union Army into an army of liberation. Perhaps most importantly, it officially sanctioned the enlistment of black men into the U.S. Army and Navy. By the war's end, nearly 200,000 black soldiers would don the Union blue, fighting not just for a country, but for their very right to exist as free men. The Western Theater, the Gibraltar of the Confederacy. While the political landscape shifted in Washington, the military focus turned toward the father of waters, the Mississippi River. To President Lincoln, the city of Vicksburg, Mississippi was the key. The war can never be brought to a close until that key is in our pocket, he famously remarked. Vicksburg sat atop high bluffs, a natural fortress surrounded by treacherous swamps and bayous. It was the Confederacy's last major stronghold on the river. If the Union could take it, they would split the South in two, cutting off vital supplies from Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. The task fell to Major General Ulysses S. Grant. Grant's early attempts in 1862 were disastrous, particularly the defeat at Chickasaw Bayou. But Grant was a man of unconditional surrender and relentless grit. He spent the early months of 1863 performing engineering miracles, draining bayous, building corduroy roads through Louisiana mud, and preparing his army for a daring maneuver. In April 1863, Rear Admiral David Dixon Porter performed one of the most daring naval feats of the war. Under the cover of darkness, he ran his fleet of gunboats and transports past the roaring Confederate batteries of Vicksburg. Despite a hail of iron and fire, Porter lost only one ship. With the Navy now south of the city, Grant could ferry his troops across the Mississippi and begin his inland campaign, the Chancellorsville gamble. While Grant was struggling in the mud of Mississippi, the Army of the Potomac in the east was facing its own demons. Major General Joseph Hooker, a man of immense confidence, led a massive Union force of 115,000 men against Robert E. Lee's 60,000 at Chancellorsville, Virginia. Numerical superiority suggested a Union cakewalk, but Lee was never one to follow the rules of conventional warfare. In what is often called his perfect masterpiece, Lee did the unthinkable. He divided his smaller army. He left a small force at Fredericksburg and took the rest to meet Hooker. Then he divided his force again, sending Thomas Jackson on a grueling 12-mile march around the Union's exposed right flank. The surprise was total. As the sun set on May 2nd, Jackson's men screamed out of the woods, shattering the Union 11th Corps. It was a spectacular victory for the South, but it came at a price they could never afford. That night, while scouting in the darkness, Stonewall Jackson was accidentally shot by his own men, the 18th North Carolina Infantry. He died days later of pneumonia. Lee had won the battle, but he had lost his right arm. Road to Champion Hill. Back in Mississippi, Grant was moving with lightning speed, abandoning his supply lines, a move considered suicidal by military experts of the time. Grant lived off the land and fought 5 battles in 18 days. The climax of this inland campaign was the Battle of Champion Hill on May 16, 1863. It was a brutal seesaw struggle for the high ground. Union General Alvin P. Hovey called it a hill of death. After hours of hand-to-hand combat, the Confederates under General John C. Pemberton were forced to retreat into the defenses of Vicksburg. The trap was set. By May 18, Grant had Vicksburg surrounded. He attempted 2 bloody frontal assaults, but the Confederate defenses held firm. Realizing that a direct attack would cost too many lives, Grant settled in for a siege. For 47 days, the citizens and soldiers of Vicksburg lived in caves to escape constant Union shelling, eating horses, mules, and eventually rats. Gettysburg, the high watermark. Flush with victory from Chancellorsville, but desperate for supplies and international recognition, Robert E. Lee decided to take the war to the north. He marched his Army of Northern Virginia into Pennsylvania. He hoped that a victory on northern soil would shatter the Union's will to fight and perhaps draw the British or French into the war on the side of the Confederacy. The 2 armies collided almost by accident at the small crossroads town of Gettysburg on July 1, 1863. Day 1. The battle began when Confederate General Henry Heth's men ran into Union cavalry under John Buford. The Union held the high ground, but was eventually pushed back through the town to Cemetery Hill. Day 2. Lee attempted to turn both Union flanks. Violent fighting erupted at places that have since become legendary: Little Round Top, Devil's Den, the Wheat Field, and the Peach Orchard. In the extreme heat of July, thousands fell, but the Union line, shaped like a fishhook, held firm. Day 3. Desperate for a breakthrough, Lee ordered a massive frontal assault against the Union center on Cemetery Ridge. This was Pickett's charge. Approximately 12,500 Confederates marched across an open field for a mile under devastating artillery and rifle fire. It was a slaughter. The Union victory at Gettysburg was decisive. Lee began a somber retreat to Virginia on July 4th, the same day that Vicksburg surrendered to Grant in the West. The Confederacy had been broken in 2, and their best hope for a decisive victory in the North was gone. The dark aftermath and the draft riots. The victories at Vicksburg and Gettysburg should have been cause for pure celebration in the North, but the war's toll was becoming unbearable. The North had enacted a conscription or draft act, which many saw as unfair to the poor. In July 1863, New York City erupted in the draft riots. For 4 days, mobs lynched black citizens and burned down a black orphanage, blaming them for the war. It was a reminder that even in the North, the fight for equality was far from over. In retaliation for the Emancipation Proclamation, Confederate President Jefferson Davis issued the Retaliatory Act, declaring that captured black soldiers and their white officers would be executed or enslaved rather than treated as prisoners of war. Lincoln responded with General Order 252, promising a life for a life. For every Union soldier executed, a Confederate prisoner would meet the same fate. The war was turning increasingly dark and personal. Quantrill's raid and the desperation of the South. As the formal Confederate armies struggled, irregular warfare turned barbaric. On August 21, 1863, a pro-Confederate guerrilla leader named William Clark Quantrill led 450 raiders into Lawrence, Kansas. They murdered roughly 160 men and boys and burned the town to the ground. It wasn't a battle, it was a massacre, fueled by years of bleeding Kansas animosity and Southern desperation. The rise of Grant and the Gettysburg Address. Despite the horrors of 1863, The Union's momentum was now undeniable. In the fall, Grant was sent to Chattanooga, Tennessee, to rescue a besieged Union army. He succeeded brilliantly, opening the gateway to the Deep South. In November 1863, Abraham Lincoln traveled to the blood-stained fields of Pennsylvania to dedicate a national cemetery. In the Gettysburg Address, a speech of only 272 words, he redefined the American purpose. He spoke of a new birth of freedom and a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Conclusion: the long road ahead. As 1863 drew to a close, the South was physically and economically exhausted. The Mississippi was a Union highway, and Lee's invincibility had been shattered at Gettysburg. Yet the war was far from over. Robert E. Lee hoped to hold out until the 1894 election, hoping the North would grow weary of the bloodshed and vote Lincoln out of office. But the wheels of the Union's industrial and manpower advantages were now grinding the Confederacy down. Lincoln offered a hand of mercy with his proclamation of amnesty and Reconstruction, offering a pardon to any rebel who would swear an oath to the Union. 1863 was the year the United States decided what kind of nation it wanted to be. It was a year of unimaginable tragedy, but also the year that the path towards a unified, slave-free America became irreversible.